And two, man, we back and we better. Let's get it.
We out here. We out here.
Daniels takes the snap, drops back, finds a man in the air. He's going for it all. Who else? Frank Darby with the grab. Are you kidding me? Darby, 84, a playmaker for the Devils.
Jaden Daniels takes this one, fakes the handoff to Eno Benjamin, unloads this one, deep bomb all the way inside the 5-yard line. Brandon Ayuk.
Daniels under center, fakes the give to Benjamin, now has to improvise. Jaden Daniels to Eno Benjamin, touchdown Devils. How about that for Arizona State?
If the Devils are 2-0, then we say hello and welcome into the house. This guy's Joran. I'm Scotty, and Joran, what a special day and what a fun, wacky game it was this last Thursday.
Yeah, it definitely was very wacky against Sacramento State, a 19-7 win over an FCS school, and the game really came down to a few plays, and for that, we have Zach Keenan breaking down our top 3 plays of the game.
Top 3 most impactful plays of the game. This first one, Sam Clark punting out of his very own end zone. Brandon Ayuk fields it. He takes this one 38 yards all the way to the Sacramento State 9-yard line, dip, dodging, and diving all of those defenders. Brandon Ayuk, 38-yard punt return there. Look at him. Hype up the crowd, young man. Fourth quarter, ASU 12, Sacramento State 7. Jaden Daniels dropping back right here in the shotgun set. Takes the snap, finds Eno Benjamin. Wide open field on the slant. Eno Benjamin goes 72 yards untouched. Eno Benjamin makes this one 19-7 with a Christian Zendejas field goal to follow up. The very next drive, Kevin Thompson under center in his red zone. Looking to make something here. He rolls out wide, but look at all of this pressure coming from the defensive line. He has nowhere to throw it but to Cam Phillips. Makes that pick right there, seals the deal for ASU, and he can have fun with that one all night long.
From the field to the studio, Zach Keenan joins us on the house. And Zach, it was a win for Arizona State, but in name only, 19-7 over an FCS school. What do you think Arizona State could have done to be a little bit more successful? Because really, when you look at it, they really weren't.
Well, first and foremost, you're completely right in that it didn't feel like a win against an FCS opponent. Such a thin margin. Yeah, that hurts to watch. So you see Jaden Daniels, and you see that he only took 1 sack, and it was for 4 yards, which sounds incredible,
it does,
right?
yeah.
It sounds like an all-star blocking and everything else that Jaden Daniels did great, which he did. But then you take a deeper dive in the stats, and you see that Eno Benjamin averaged 1.8 yards per carry in the first half.
Oh.
ASU's offense, first half, 70 or 80 all-purpose yards.
Oh, is it worse?
And Joran, where all this stems from is the offensive line and inconsistencies within it. So we're going to take a look right now at ASU's offensive line in the preseason. You had Zach Robertson, Alex Lasoya, Cole Cabral, Steve Miller, and Jarrett Bell on inside guard. And Zach Robertson stepped away from the program for a little bit, and Cole Cabral moved to left tackle to fill his spot. Now, senior Cade Cody jumped in, and he impressed many at camp at center, but he broke his foot before the Kent State game, and now he's sidelined indefinitely.
Yikes.
Donovan West, true freshman, took over for Cody, and he's looked all right. He's snapping to a true freshman in Jaden Daniels, and this is what the ASU offensive line looked like for the Sac State game. Unfortunately, at halftime, both Miller and Bell were injured, and jumping in for them instead were Roy Hemsley and Spencer Lavelle. So this is what the ASU offensive line looked like, and this is the one that snapped a couple balls over the head of Ethan Long in the Sparky formation, as well as just couldn't figure out run and pass blocking schemes.
Now, when you look at this line, you have Cole Cabral, who's most likely going to be going into the draft as a center. What do you think of the decision to move him from center over to left tackle?
Well, it's the right move. It's the right move when Cade Cody was at center, when he was back up center. So they were able to move him to guard Jaden Daniels' blind side, and by doing so, they strengthened that side of the line with Zach Robertson out. With that hole he filled, he created another. Cade Cody stepped up, and now Donovan West is the solution to a problem that wasn't there before. So Cade Cody was looking great at center, but now Donovan West is the solution to the Cade Cody problem with his injury. So this jumble of unrecognizable offensive line is completely different, and Sun Devil fans are looking to see Jarrett Bell and Steve Miller back this week for Michigan State, but Joran, this is different.
Definitely is different, and they have a lot to go in front of them this weekend against Michigan State. Have to make the best out of a bad situation. Zach, we appreciate you stepping in here for House of Sparky.
The Pac-12 is bad.
The football in the Pac-12 is sloppy. The Mountain West is better. You hear this slander to the Pac-12 all the time watching college football, and simply, it's not true. Yes, the Pac-12 doesn't have the absolute best talent in the nation. There's no Alabama, no Clemson, no Ohio State. But the conference does have fantastic competition, and it's certainly entertaining. Other leagues have elite programs, but are so top-heavy. In the SEC right now, look at the talent gap between Alabama and Tennessee. You get my point. Now, the Pac-12 doesn't have a truly dominant force, but you won't find a conference that's more competitively balanced. Right now, the Pac-12 has two top 15 ranked teams in Oregon and Utah. The Ducks nearly beat Auburn in Week 1 and look like an offense possessed with potential #1 pick Justin Herbert leading the charge. Utah, with dynamic quarterback Tyler Huntley and star running back Zach Moss, in addition to what's another stellar Utah defensive front, might even be able to push for a spot in the college football playoff. Water is wet, and Mike Leach is leading a Washington State team to score 1,000 more points per week. And some freshman kid named Kadon Slovis is sure making USC exciting. I mean, who is this kid? JT Daniels is lost for the season in Week 1, and this kid comes in and beats a ranked Stanford team, throwing for 374 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first college start. That's part of the charm of the Pac-12. You never know what's going to happen when each week begins. Just last week, Cal, after struggling to beat UC Davis in the Bears season opener, marched into Seattle and beat Washington in a wild and wacky chapter of Pac-12 After Dark. A Cal team that looked pretty awful in Week 1 upset the Huskies, snapping a 15-game home winning streak. What about the coaching duels we get to see each week? The coaches alone are fantastic entertainment. I don't know about you, but I love seeing Mike Leach explain aliens or marriage and then go on to score 50 points against what's supposed to be a good defense. You have big-name experienced coaches like Herm Edwards, Chris Peterson, Mike Leach, David Shaw, Chip Kelly, and Kevin Sumlin, while there are young up-and-coming coaches like Mario Cristobal and Justin Wilcox. I know you sometimes see a Sac State nearly beat ASU, and Oregon State losing to Hawaii is rough for the conference. But you can make an argument that 11 of the 12 teams have a realistic chance to play in the Rose Bowl this year. You can't say that about every conference. Isn't that what college football is supposed to be? Exciting, high-scoring, intense, unpredictable. So the next time you're watching Pac-12 After Dark, instead of complaining the teams annually aren't competing for the college football playoff, don't take the entertainment in front of you for granted.
Hey, one of our favorite things to do here on The House is get a full and complete breakdown on the Arizona State Sun Devil football squad. That's why we're bringing our guy Ryan McClure. First off, thanks so much for the time, and really
thank you very
excited.
much.
The House Film Review, a brand new segment we've got here, huh?
Yeah, and today we're going to take a look at obviously the big road game against Michigan State this coming Saturday. This is a big game, especially for true freshman Jaden Daniels. But let's start with an old guy,
Right.
Manny Wilkins. You know, he's up in Green Bay, but
Blast of the past.
he knows how to hurdle. See, we take a look. We're looking at his highlights. These are throws, consistent throws. They may not look like anything special, but if they want a chance at winning, Jaden Daniels needs to make these throws consistently. And you know what? It doesn't even need to be in the air. It could be on the ground too. This is a big play in this game. If you guys remember a whole year ago, 3rd and 20, scrambles, gets into field goal range. That's big. So let's take a look at Jaden Daniels in the Sacramento State game. What he does, great job pre-snap, is he diagnoses the coverage. He recognizes that it's cover 2. Right here, you can see the safety up here. He has the deep half of the field outlined in the red, and then the corner has the flat, which is the outline in the blue, and 5 yards in between the hash and the sideline. So he does a great job at recognizing the coverage, and then he's going to change the play to a pick play, also known as a red play. And basically what this is going to be is Brandon Ayuk is going to not even have a route assigned to him. His sole job is to get the corner away from Kyle Williams. And how he's going to do it is he's going to have to be physical, and he's going to have to be smart. You cannot have an offensive pass interference. It's very common. You see it all the time in the NFL, the NCAA, high school. So basically Kyle Williams, he's going to run a 5-yard out here, 5 to 6 yard out, and this is money. But this throw is actually harder than it looks. Take a look at Daniels. He's going to throw this ball before Williams is even turned around. It's fantastic timing, and for a true freshman making these timing throws, getting confident, that's just big for a true freshman quarterback.
Oh, it totally is, and not to mention a guy like Brandon Ayuk with his immense speed. I mean, he's a guy that can be such a great decoy, and we see it in this play.
Yeah, Ayuk, look at perfect. He's not being too physical, but he's being physical enough to get Williams to be open. Next play is another one. This is what we call a sprint out, and the sprint out, his primary receiver is Kyle Williams. Yet again, they're in the slot. That's going to be a 10 to 12 yard out. This is money. Teams all over the country run it. High school, NFL, college, everyone runs this. And then you're also going to have a fake bubble and a deep route from Frank Darby there on the outside. This is called flood pattern, which means you have a low route, you have the medium route, and then you have that deep route, the low route being that bubble screen. And watch the corner. Watch what the corner does. This is very effective for ASU. This is fantastic. Take a look at this corner. He's going to bite on this fake bubble screen right here. Boom. Now you see down here you got Kyle Williams. He is wide open. Perfect execution. These are throws they need to make if they need to win this game. Daniels needs to make this throw. Williams needs to make this catch. So let's take a look at Daniels. He has all day to roll out. He does not get his depth, and his shoulders are not parallel with the hash. When you roll out, you want your shoulders to be parallel with the hash. That way it's an easier throw coming downhill. And then now let's take a look at Williams. If you see sideline plays, you're always facing the sideline. You're getting your feet down. I don't know why Kyle Williams, I don't know what's going on, but he's facing towards the middle of the field on these out patterns, on these corners. Any out route going towards the outside, you need to be facing the sideline. And Daniels, that's what he expects. He expects his receiver to be near the sideline, facing the sideline, so he throws it. This is actually not a bad throw by Daniels, but Kyle Williams, he gets tossed and turned around, and he can't make the catch.
Yeah, in a game like Sacramento State, you can make possibilities and things that don't work out that way in a game against Sacramento State. But against Michigan State, you got to believe you can't make mistakes like that, huh?
Those are big plays that need to make. And Jaden Daniels, this true freshman excuse, it's not going to last. It's not going to keep going. You're not going to be a true freshman forever. Even in your first road game, that excuse won't cut it for the Devils.
So looking at the wide receiver core, we saw a few plays from Kyle Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Frank Darby, who had a great game last game. Who is the X factor going up in East Lansing?
I think it's Kyle Williams. He had a big game last year against Michigan State. 7 receptions, like I said, 109 yards. He didn't find the end zone, but I expect him to have a big game. Brandon Ayuk's going to get all the attention from that defense, so I expect Frank Darby and Kyle Williams to both have a big game.
Could be a big day for them and a big day for this guy. Ryan McClure, thanks so much for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The pride of ASU is this 60-foot-tall, gold-painted letter A. Everybody knows that it sits on top of A Mountain, but what a lot of people don't know is, 1, the real name of the mountain is Hayden Butte, and 2, it actually has a volcanic origin, much like that of the Sun Devil offense, which for years has impressed fans right over here in Sun Devil Stadium with its ability to take the top off of defenses and explode for huge point-scoring games. Now, this mountain is no longer a risk for any volcanic activities, and this year, the Sun Devil team hasn't either. In the first week of the season, they were only able to muster 10 points in the first half off of Kent State. And in the second week of the season, they were only able to get 1 touchdown versus an FCS school. Kicker Christian Zendejas has led the team in points by getting 25. The rest of the team has only gotten 24. You heard that right. The kicker has had the most points on the team. That is not something you expect with a team with combustible playmakers like that of Eno Benjamin, Frank Darby, Brandon Ayuk, and Jaden Daniels. Now, if this team wants any chance this Saturday as they go on the road and put their back to Sun Devil Stadium, they're going to need these guys to show up. And if they really do hope to someday win a Pac-12 title and get to the top of the mountain, they're going to need to turn back the clocks, dust off the ashes, and return to the volcanic form of old.
The biggest game of the season to this point, so we bring in the biggest analyst that we have. Quinn Jamison joins the house. And Quinn, when we talk about Michigan State, you can't go really far without mentioning the defense for the Spartans and ASU, who struggled their first 2 games. How do they go after that defense that's returning so many players?
You know, it's going to be really tough, Jordan. Michigan State's defense, their biggest strength is their depth and their experience. But you also look at their front 7. They returned 6 of those 7 starters from last year, and that's the number 1 ranked rushing defense in the country. They're allowing only 81.3 yards per game, which is absolutely ridiculous. When you look at Arizona State's offensive line, it hasn't been the prettiest sight so far.
Definitely.
It's going to be tough for Eno Benjamin to find space. The battle of the trenches could decide this game. Moving back into the linebackers, Joe Bocci, preseason All-American, has over 100 tackles in each of his last 2 seasons. He's all over the place. Jaden Daniels is going to have to key in on him, see what he's doing, because he can really make a difference from the linebacker position.
And it's going to be really interesting to see how teams are keying more on Eno Benjamin. What is going to be that second option? Is it going to be Jaden Daniels on the run? Is it going to be Isaiah Floyd? Only time will tell. But now let's switch gears here a little bit. Michigan State's offense has really been their Achilles heel the past couple of seasons. And Arizona State, a complete flip script here is because they're playing so well defensively. Now, granted, it was against Kent State and Sacramento State, but what do you see when you look at Michigan State offensively versus the Devils defense?
The Michigan State offense has some similarities to their defense in the fact that they're returning a lot of players. In the first game of the season against Tulsa, it didn't go so well, but then in game 2 against Western Michigan, they put up 51 points, over 500 yards of total offense, and really seemed to click. At the helm is Brian Lewerke, who is the quarterback last year. He's a local kid here from Arizona, and he's a really talented player. He gets the ball out quickly, and he makes good decisions. With that being said, Arizona State, if they can get pressure on him, they can maybe make something happen. The biggest difference comes in the form of redshirt freshman running back Elijah Collins. He burst onto the scene this season. He rushed for 192 yards last week against Western Michigan. He's that prototypical Michigan State style running back, ground and pound. He gets downhill. He can make a guy miss. And he's going to be a factor for sure.
And this will be the first time this season that the Devils have faced that kind of ground and pound type of offense. But when you look at the game last year into this year, a lot of things match up similarly. And when you're Arizona State, does that kind of bode well in your favor because you're thinking, hey, we played the same team last year, can we go do it again?
Michigan State is so similar in personnel, but as linebacker coach Antonio Pierce said today at practice, that can kind of lead to a sense of false confidence. Yes, the personnel is similar, but it's a different season. This isn't 2018.
Right.
Obviously, they watched the film on that game, they see what they did well, and they can improve upon that, but this is a new Michigan State team, even though the personnel is going to be familiar. Spartan Stadium is going to have 80,000 fans going absolutely nuts. It's going to be a really tough test for Herm Edwards and his football team.
It absolutely will. Quinn, we appreciate you stepping in. And coming up now, the Sun Devils going on the road, and it hasn't been too kind to them so far. Eric Ruby has more.
After an interesting first two games at home, Herm Edwards and the Sun Devils will hit the road for the first time this season as they travel to Michigan State to take on the Spartans this Saturday. While Edwards has been promising in his short tenure as head coach, there's been a glaring weakness when it comes to his team: road games. Now, this isn't a new problem for the Sun Devils. Since 2015, ASU football is an abysmal 6-18 on the road and at neutral site games. That includes last season, Herm's first, where the 7-6 Sun Devils were 5-1 at home, 2-4 on the road, and 0-1 at a neutral site. And as the Sun Devils travel away from Sun Devil Stadium for the first time this year, you can't help but think, will this year be any different? If ASU wants to have any chance to win the Pac-12 South, they have to win at least 3 games on the road. But where will those 3 wins come from? Will they happen in Corvallis or Berkeley? Maybe Salt Lake City or Pasadena? Or will one happen this weekend in East Lansing? With this Sun Devil team who struggled to beat an FCS team in week 2, you don't know where they'll come from. While all this is up in the air, one thing is for sure: the Herm train's ready to leave the station. But are you ready to jump on board?
Eric Ruby brought up a lot of good points when he was talking about the road struggles with this team, Scotty, and it got me thinking, on the road, it's time to bring back an old classic, pros and cons.
Yeah,
are you ready?
Look at that smile.
Yeah, you like that? Because I'm ready to go. And I like to be a negative Nancy a lot of the time, so I'm going to start things off with a con. And one of these things with this team is offensively they cannot produce. You only score 19 points against Sacramento State, an FCS school. That's just not going to get the job done, especially when you have Eno Benjamin, who's supposed to be a dark horse Heisman candidate, getting less than 100 yards the first time the Devils have rushed for less than 100 yards since Michigan State last year. You add those things together, you do not get a winning formula, Scotty.
Hey, I think the offense is going to figure it out as time goes by. They're going to have to figure it out, and they will. The offensive line situation is so crazy. They've got great players. Jaden Daniels, he's got a bright future. The defense I could talk about forever and ever, but I want to focus in for the first real pro of the day on the special teams. Who were the Pac-12 special teams players of the week? In week 1, it was the punter Michael Turk. In week 2, it was the kicker and Christian Zendejas. Those guys have been just so good so far this season for the Arizona State Sun Devils. I mean, Ray Guy, punter of the week in week 1 for our guy Michael Turk, and Zendejas made 4 field goals last week. So really, really impressive on the terms of special teams, and 2 guys that weren't playing for the team last season.
And now we move on to our second con, because we're talking about guys who played last season. A recurring theme every season, Scotty, is on the road and playing games in the cold. And Arizona State got a little lucky this year playing Michigan State so early, but when you look at Arizona State historically on the road since 2015, like Eric Ruby said, 6-18, and that's not going to get the job done, especially when you go up against a lot of good teams. Later in the season, they play Utah on the road, they play Oregon State on the road, and I know it's Oregon State, but trust me, that game screams trap game. When you add all these things together, Scotty, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Sun Devils with an almost all freshman offensive line, a freshman quarterback, to go into hostile territory and get a win.
The team is young. We know that for sure. The only real number I care about, the only real stat that I really care about is 9-6. and that's the team's record ever since Herm Edwards took over. 7-6 last year, 2-0, of course, this year already. And when you look at that, and you look at this team going up to Michigan State, yeah, they're a really, really good team. But Benjamin is a guy that's one of the best running backs in the Pac-12, if not the best running back in the Pac-12. And a good running team always travels. Yes, Jaden Daniels is young. The wide receiver core is kind of all over the place. Brandon Ayuk has been awesome. But when you look at a guy like Benjamin, he's going to take that to Michigan State. The Arizona State Sun Devils are going to take, at the very least, a motivated and inspired performance to Michigan State. They beat them last year, and I think they can do it again, Jordan.
I think they definitely could. They definitely have that opportunity. And we know one thing's for sure. Herm Edwards is going to have them ready to go, and I think he might be the X factor in this game.
There was a lot of X factors all over the Pac-12 conference this week. Swinging it around the Pac-12 for the Pac-12 top plays of the week. Let's start in SoCal. Kadon Slovis, his first start, drop it right into Amon-Ra St. Brown. 377 yards, 3 touchdowns as the Trojans took down the Stanford Cardinal. Jordan, are they back?
They could be back, but speaking of backs, how about a couple plays from running backs? First, though, it's the Tyler Huntley quarterback. He can carry the ball, rumbles into the end zone, and then here from about 15 yards out, Zach Moss. How about that? Get off me. 35-17, Utah on top.
Utah, man, they are awesome. Who else is awesome? This play is awesome. Colorado down 17 points at one time. Steven Montez drops it in, ties the game in the final minute. They take down the Nebraska Cornhuskers in overtime, as that's all for the Pac-12 top plays of the week. Jaron, what a game.
Scotty.
Down 17 points down. They come back to win against Nebraska, and the stadium was red.
Stadium is red, and so would that name be if you were to spell it on the spell check right there, because you definitely butchered my name right now. No matter where I go,
That was good.
No matter where I go, it's going to be mispronounced. Jordan, Jaron, Jury, it never leaves me.
Skinny leg guy.
Exactly, yeah, big skinny leg guy. That's also never going to leave me either. But let's talk about Michigan State, because it was a great show, and it's going to be an even better game this coming week over in East Lansing. So, Scotty, we'll see you next week, and until next time, for Scotty Gage, Jordan Palacio here, his House of Sparky. We'll see you after the Devils take on Michigan State.